So how do you decide what you're going to do with those people when you arrive?
So when we arrive, we obviously have to make a decision on the appropriate care pathway for these patients we're attending, the elderly. Obviously, it depends on why they've called us, to the best plan of action to treat those patients. If it is a fall, for instance, we have to establish why they might have fallen. Have they just simply tripped because they have poor mobility normally, or have they felt unwell, collapsed? Obviously, depending on our investigations, that will determine the care pathway we take. To determine that, we can do a full range of assessment. We do ECGs, we look at their past medical history, we do a full assessment, and we see if they've injured themselves really. Once on scene, we'll tend to try to get them up, obviously, once we've made sure that they're okay. We then assess their mobility, and we basically want to see that this patient is the same as how they were before they had the fall. And if their mobility is the same and they haven't significantly hurt themselves, or we don't think they need assessment in hospital, say if it was a collapse, then we tend to leave them there as long as we feel they're safe to be at home. And then after that, we might refer them. We have a team we can refer to who can come out and then maybe assess their needs at home if they need more aids or anything that might help them. Prevention really, so trying to prevent them falling rather than them falling, them injuring themselves and then spending time in hospital is what we try to avoid. So we try to leave them at home where we can, but sometimes it's difficult when, say, it's 3 in the morning and we don't have all the patients' information, all their past medical history to make a completely informed decision. But we try to speak to the out of hours doctors and people like that who can shed some more light on their history and also give us some advice. But we try to tend to leave them at home where we can.
Okay. And if somebody's borderline, how difficult is it to make that decision?
If they are borderline, it's quite hard to make that decision. If I'm honest, I think it can be determined on what time of the day it is. So if it's a Monday afternoon and their doctor's open, and we can give the doctor a call, which we do a lot, and they can give us a world of advice. They can say that's normal, that's okay. We can look at their records. But if it's the middle of the night, that's where that decision becomes harder. And we will tend to err on the side of caution, because I think our mentality, if we take them to A&E, we'd like to hope that they'll be assessed and then even discharged or not, and obviously only admitted if they need to be. But it is really difficult, and it's all about safety netting for us. So we can leave them at home as long as we're confident that there's some sort of safety net there. You know, if that's just worse than advice to call a doctor, or to at least get the doctor involved who's going to go and see them the next day. Obviously, we feel more confident if there's maybe a next of kin on scene or someone who can just help them out, because they can obviously be vulnerable, and we don't want to leave them there and become more unwell. So it's a difficult decision, and it's on case by case scenario. Each patient is going to be completely different, and it just depends on how they've presented, what's happened. There's so many variables on what we might do.